Hey, what's up? The reason I'm making this video is because I wanted to see if anyone else made a video on, how to use the patcher tool for Unity Engine for this recent vulnerability that has came out. And there's a lot of people talking about the issue, and I'm sure there's probably a video of someone explaining it. Um, in fact, maybe this one is doing it. I don't know. But I want to make my own video, going through the process for myself for the first time here. I have not done it yet, but I wanted to go through it to actually see how easy it actually is. Because I was watching some of these videos and I'm reading some of the comments in the videos, and it seems like a lot of people are having a hard time or are saying like the process is more annoying than it actually is, or, and getting angry at Unity. And I'm like, okay, do I want to be on their side, or is everyone just misunderstanding the information that is floating around regarding this, and everyone just ends up updating to Unity 6, and then problems happen, and people are like, they shouldn't be doing this. They shouldn't, people shouldn't have to update to Unity 6. And I'm like, well, patcher tool. Everyone's talking about this patcher tool. Maybe that's what you should be using. Is it really that hard? But so yeah, I'm just making a video because I want to go through the process for myself so that people can kind of see what it's like before you actually do it. What are you getting into? And maybe if you're getting stuck, you can see how I did it and see if like maybe there was something you missed or whatever. But anyway, I'm going to get into that right now with the following page that some of you have probably seen before. So this is the page that I believe you will be directed to when it comes to actually getting the patcher, and you'll see this nice blue button here. Here is a link also, by the way. So here's a link. I'll put it down in the description as well. I believe I got this link originally from the Jason Wyman video that you probably saw just a second ago. So yeah, I got it from here. That's where I got it from. But I know that there were various other YouTube videos. I know Games from Scratch did a video, and I think his was the one that I originally watched. I'm fairly certain the same link is in his uh, video description as well. But in any case, this is where you need to go end up, and this is the link to this place. So let's just start with this. All right, enough rambling. Let's just get on with it. So this isn't like another 40-minute video of mine. So click on that, and then we end up to this page, which is just a forum post talking about things. It looks like there's different versions of this patcher, and there's some other info here. I'm gonna get the latest version. There's also this here, patched Unity versions. The following versions are already patched and no action is necessary, which is kind of interesting because, they're showing these versions. For our game Below the Stone, we are using 2021 345, I believe, but here it's 45 F2. So it's very interesting. Ours is F1, so I'm assuming the F2 is because of that fix. So technically, my notion is that if we wanted to, for our game, if we wanted to patch the game, all we have to do is update to this very specific version, which I would assume wouldn't be that difficult because it's literally all that's different is the F2 at the end, which to me indicates that it's literally just a security fix. The only change is the security fix, which shouldn't be difficult. And if people are getting upset because they think like, oh, we have to update to like, they're telling us you have to update to the latest version, well, it seems like there's other options. I'm kind of confused why some people are kind of getting upset over these kinds of things if there are other options. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm about to discover in a couple of minutes what the actual problem is. We'll see. I just want to document this at the very least. And if everything works out, well, then hopefully this can also be a good tutorial video going through the process. Actually, I will note one other thing before I continue. And it's that when you open up Unity Hub, of course, as many of you have probably seen, that whatever version of Unity that you are using for your project, obviously there will be a little red warning symbol indicating that this version has the vulnerability. So my notion is that when I use the patcher tool, that symbol will go away. We will see. Maybe it won't. Who knows? I hope it would, because seeing something like that is kind of annoying, especially when the issue is gone, when you've resolved the issue. But anyway, let's move on. All right, a quick little aside. So I'm recording this right now after the main recording. I am actually like in the middle of editing this video, and I kind of realized something. Well, number one, the purpose of this video was to talk about this, but I thought this was the same thing as this, and I kind of realized while recording this video that they're not the same thing. So I also want to emphasize that it is important to do this as well. I think you should do both of these things. If you have a build on Steam that you know has this vulnerability, this is the simplest path to making sure that it's fixed and that you don't have to worry right now about people falling victim to this exploit. But for future builds of your game that you are putting on Steam, it is important to make sure that you do this, that you download a new editor version. But what I want to say is that I heard some people talking about how they would update from like an older version of Unity and update to Unity 6, and then there were issues, because a lot of things had changed, and so certain files were either broken, or there was kind of broke their game and it just didn't work, and they're frustrated because it's like, oh, I have to like fix the security vulnerability, but I have to update to Unity 6. You don't have to. You don't have to update to Unity 6. I know this information is probably coming a little bit late, but you don't have to. It's unfortunate that people kind of ended up in this situation, but yeah. What I will say is, of course, this link here, I will actually, here's the link right here. You can go to this place. This is, I mean, most of you probably know where this is. You've probably seen this before. This is just a web page that has all different versions of Unity that you can install and download and install. And that's what this is right here. You click on this, it'll take you to this page, and it shows you in a very nice UI. I like it very much. It's very clean. All the different versions of Unity and all the different kind of like, we'll just click all versions. I'm going to click all versions. Of course, if we go to Unity 5, Unity 5 doesn't have the issue. 2017 does have the issue. There's no fixes for it quite yet. Hopefully they will soon. I don't know. Hopefully they will, though. 2018 doesn't have the issue. And then 2019, they have a couple versions to patch it. And then every version after that, there are fixes. In fact, if you click on all versions, there's even more. There's even more options. It's just that LTS is like their long-term support. So usually it's recommended to get the LTS, but you get the idea. So key takeaway there is just that, I know this information is probably coming way too late for most people. Hopefully you're using version control, because version control helps in these kind of situations. But if you're in 2020 or 2019 versions, you don't have to update to Unity 6. Again, I know this is probably coming too late. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I only decided to make this video now. But I'm kind of surprised that a lot of people are like I assumed that like, oh yeah, Unity like did all this stuff. They patched all these different versions, and they provided a tool to help with the process and all this kind of stuff. Like they did their due diligence, it seems, from my point of view. Like I assumed most people were not really having any issues. But it looks like a lot of people are having issues, despite the fact that, from the videos and content that I've watched on the matter, it seemed pretty clear that like you didn't have to update to Unity 6. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say. This is just kind of an insert into the middle of the video because I want to make sure that y'all hear this, okay? Because some of you have been struggling. I'm sorry to hear about your struggles. I hope it gets better, okay? Anyway, we're going back now. Okay, so I'm going to click on the latest version. Obviously, if this is in the future, they probably released future versions, who knows. It looks like in this version, they just did some like minor things for Mac OS. They're telling you what has changed. There's different versions of the patcher tool. But in my case, I'm going to download Windows. I already clicked on this. I'm going to click on it again, though. It's going to download it into your downloads folder. Then it's going to be a zip folder, and you extract it and as a separate folder. So when you download the zip file and you extract it into its own folder like this, as you see here, this is what the contents of the file look like. So, it's just this probably. We're going to double click on this, run that, and hopefully no weird information shows up that I'm going to have to block out, but so far nothing. Application patcher, Android, Windows, Mac OS. Application path. This is for Android, so we'll click on Windows because I only have a Windows build at the moment. Application DLL path. Okay. Let's see here. Path to the DLL player file to update. I think I know what it's going to do, because I remember reading somewhere. This is food for thought here. I remember reading somewhere that you could also download a DLL, a Unity Player DLL, and then just replace it with the existing Unity Player DLL file for your pre-built game, and that's it, or something along those lines. And so you don't have to like rebuild your game. All you have to do is like take an existing build, replace the DLL, and then kind of there you go. Which is interesting, because what that ultimately means is that even users themselves, so the developers, if I'm correct, if I'm wrong in what I'm saying here, please someone correct me. But my understanding is that someone could take the patched DLL. Obviously, there'd be different versions for different versions of Unity, but you could take the patched DLL, replace it with the existing DLL that has the vulnerability, and then you could basically solve the problem on your own end. That's my guess, though. Probably wrong, but if it was something where the game on Steam was no longer being maintained and updated, and you knew it had that vulnerability and this issue existed, then users themselves could also solve this vulnerability by downloading the patched DLL, Unity Player DLL, because Unity Player.dll is essentially the thing which is essentially Unity Engine itself. It's where all of its core stuff exists. So replacing that with the patched version is really all that you need to do. That's what it comes down to. All right, so one other good thing to note here before I show you the rest of this is that there is a documentation folder in the actual patcher thing that you downloaded. And if you look at that, uh, obviously there's a lot of different things here. There's an images folder with a bunch of stuff in it, which actually might be of some other form of use. But in particular here, I opened this patch Windows applications markdown file and read through it a little bit, and it kind of confirmed my assumptions. I just wanted to make sure I was doing the right thing here. And so in this markdown, in this text document, it basically explained like, oh, this is how you use it, whatever. I kind of glazed over this before. This was this page where we started. And down here, it gives those two different options, remediation options. You can either rebuild with a patched Unity editor, which is recommended. In fact, I'm probably still going to have to do this, which is fine. But at least for the current build that we have on Steam, I want to make sure it's patched. I was assuming that this patcher is doing what this is doing, where but these are two different kinds of patching going on. There's the patched Unity editor, which means that every build that you make past that point will be safe. This is specifically for patching an existing build. So in theory, even if a game on Steam was not being maintained by its original developer anymore, you could, if you get the right DLL, the right patched DLL, you can take that DLL, replace it with the bad one, the vulnerable one, and you fix the problem. It would be as simple as that. Again, if I'm wrong, someone correct me on that, but that seems to be the case, because what this seems to be doing is, like I said, just replacing the existing one. So we're going to do that now. So going back to here, this is the folder. So in this case, this is the actual build for the recent version of Below the Stone that's on Steam right now. This is the recent version, and so this is the folder that this is in is also the folder that we put things into when we upload it to Steam. So this is the version that's on Steam. And so all I have to do is click on Unity Player DLL. This is the actual game itself. The Unity Player, this is essentially the engine itself. So I select that, click open, and then of course you'll see the link here, or the path, I should say, the path to that location. And then all I have to do is hit patch. And I will say, of course, I should probably block out this as well. This will be this what I'm pointing at here will probably be a black box for you. It'll be the path that you selected, and we'll click patch, and it will spew out some information. I did want to say that I wanted to check the. Actually, no, that's fine. I was going to do something with that. And I'm going to probably block out some of the stuff as well because there's some random paths and whatever. But it's downloading. It says success. It worked. Success. Patched file can be found at this location. We go to that location. You will see here that it says 1119. So it changed it. Now, ideally, what I would have wanted to do is look at the checksum, right? Because I could do that. Now, you might be thinking, what am I talking about? So you can actually do this with different programs that exist out there. But I have a program called 7-Zip, which is like an alternative to WinRAR. I use both WinRAR and 7-Zip. But 7-Zip has this cool little right-click feature where you can say CRC SHA. If you don't know what the heck this means, this basically just means you can create a unique ID based off of the contents of a file. So in this case, I could do like SHA-256, right? And then it will tell me this is it. So it's basically this is just for those of you who are confused by this, think of this as just a unique ID. It's a number essentially, but it's just a unique ID. And you could look at like, I wish there was a way to compare, right? Maybe there is, I don't know. But you kind of have to like make a mental note of like, oh yeah, it starts with 974 and ends with 9F3. Obviously, I don't have the older one, right? The old DLL. It's gone now. I can't undo that, or maybe I can. I don't know, but I'm not going to attempt to. But in theory, you would do the same thing on that one. And if the numbers are different, if I do the same thing with that, it would be different. And that would just confirm to me that it is indeed a different DLL, that it has changed. But I trust that it changed because I trust that, they released this tool for patching because Unity wants to make sure that any games built in Unity don't have this vulnerability anymore and stuff like that. One last thing I will do before I actually end this video is I'm going to actually run the game to confirm it actually runs, because in fact I believe in here they're saying here there's actually a lot of interesting info in here that might be relevant to you. But they're basically saying here, run the game and make sure it works. I think they're saying that here. Test your application post-patching to ensure functionality, and republish to your distribution channels. So what I'm going to do is, now that this build has been patched, I'm not going to really change the version number of our game or anything. I'm just going to put it out there, upload it on Steam so that no one is affected by this vulnerability, and then people get mad at us because why didn't you do anything, So we got to do it, right? The game seems to run. I mean, I could try some other stuff or whatever and see, but it seems to work. So good. But yeah, I will upload this build to Steam, and that's pretty much it. I don't know what else I was gonna say about that. That's how the tool works. Obviously, I think so. That was pretty straightforward outside of uploading the build to Steam. Steamworks, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, the only catch, of course, is that I still would need to. So I guess I'm not surprised that the red triangle is still there, because I didn't really patch the editor version. I simply just patched the specific pre-existing build. But that's fine because that's all I was trying to do anyway. But in any case, I would still need to do this, and I'm fine with that. I'm honestly fine with that. I think eventually over time we're going to update to newer versions of Unity. It's just sad that I think now we have to make sure that whenever we update, we have to make sure that we're updating to a build that has the patch. I think that's the only problem. But this is a list of those versions, so not too bad. Like I said, what we'll probably end up doing is updating to 45F2 or maybe even 56F2. We'll update to this version, and then as time goes on, I guess we'll just refer to this to make sure that we're only downloading the patched versions. And yeah, I will admit though, the other route you can go is that every build you make, that you'd have to run the patcher tool on it. But I don't know if they've patched every single version of Unity. It could just be these versions and that's it. It also seems here that they're stopping at 2019, but if you go back to here, or actually no, it was in Jason Wyman's video. There was this link where it tells you, and this is, unity.com, but this is apparently all of the versions that are affected. So it goes all the way up to the latest version of Unity and all the way back to 2017. So I'm kind of confused as to why there are these only patches going back as far as 2019. But there's probably info that explains why, or just something useful to kind of help make this feel like a less stressful process. One final remark I will say is that I know a lot of people definitely have been very frustrated with Unity over this, and I'm not trying to vehemently defend Unity at every single bit of criticism, but I guess sometimes I'm an optimist, and maybe to a fault, perhaps. But to be completely honest, it would be a lot worse if Unity just said, we're not going to do anything about this, or well, that would be the worst thing if they said that. That would honestly be that would be really bad if they said that. Or if they took a long time to fix this. In all fairness, they could have known about this for a while and then announced it when they got the patch out. I don't know. But the fact that they did something about it, the fact that there was a response and they put out this very meticulous kind of release of information of here are tools, here are steps that you need to take in order to fix this, right? It could be a lot more of a annoying process than what it already is. Okay, I don't think, for those of you who have done this already, I don't think you necessarily needed to update to the latest version of Unity. Like, I don't think you needed to do that. I know this issue does throw a wrench into things because now you have to think about which version of Unity you're updating to, because some versions may have the exploit and so on and so forth. But what I will say, I think I try to be as an optimist here, but I think some information is worth being said, right? Whether you call it an optimistic mindset or not. This exploit is not something where and I think I'm getting this. I don't know if this came from the Games from Scratch video, or I think this was actually Mudahar, or what's his name? The other guy who does a lot of cybersecurity YouTube videos and stuff like that. I think he was the video that I watched regarding this, and I think what I took out of that is that the vulnerability is only caused or only exploited. The vulnerability is exploited by the launching of the application. So, for example, one way that this could be exploited is if you click a link in your browser, and I'm just trying to think of an example, but you may not have realized this, but one thing you can actually do. So here's an example of what I mean. So this is actually a URL. Now, the only thing missing from this is a number here. That's just a random number. But basically, this is like the ID of a game on Steam. So assume that this is like the valid ID of a game on Steam. If you take this, copy it, and paste it into your browser, it will take you to the store page in the Steam application itself. It will take you to that store page. So if we took the game ID for Below the Stone and pasted it in here, and then you took this whole thing, copied and pasted it into your browser and hit enter, you'd get a pop-up that says, this link is requesting to open up Steam, your Steam client. And then if you click approve or okay or whatever, it'll bring up your Steam client, it'll bring it up and open you to the Steam page. And maybe the reason for doing that is so that it's easier for the user to, buy the game or wish list it or something else, or to do some sort of something actionable, right? Rather than having to, like, if they're not signed into Steam in the browser, if they're signed in the client itself, then that makes things a little bit easier. But anyway, my point is that this bit here is something that I'm pretty sure there's a lot of functionality, and one thing that perhaps you can do is you can launch a game using this in your browser. So you could click on a link that could launch a game on your computer, right? Kind of like a command line. And on top of that, you could potentially feed in like command line arguments and things. And I believe this is where, like, at this page down here, there's talking about some stuff here, like explaining how this all works. In fact, this page has a lot of interesting info on it, probably explaining how the vulnerability works, excuse me. But at the end of the day, one of the ways to exploit it involves basically taking advantage of this thing that you can do in your browser in the address bar, where you can say, like, launch game. I don't know if that's actually what it's called. And then an ID. And then if you do this, then it launches the game. But then on top of that, you could say something like, params, and then whatever, And so basically, this right here would be like the thing which exploits the vulnerability, right? You're launching the game and then feeding in this data, which is taking advantage of the vulnerability to, remotely execute some code to actually do whatever the bad actor may be trying to do in that case. So the vulnerability has to do with the actual launching of the game. And the reason I say this is because some people might be concerned about existing games and them being vulnerable. And the thing is if you're launching a game through Steam normally, so for example, like if you launch it with this green button here, then you won't have any issues. The only way at which you would potentially have an issue is if for whatever reason, let's say you run some command in the browser, and let's say the command changes your launch options here. These are essentially like what I was saying before, but in a different place, where you can have, whatever launch options, whatever, you can type in whatever you want here. And when the program runs, when you hit play, this gets passed into it, which could include a payload, something that is exploiting the vulnerability and doing some bad stuff. But if this is empty, then you're not going to be vulnerable while running the game. I think that's the distinction I want to make here, is that running while the game is running, as long as you know the parameters that are being launched with the application, then the vulnerability is not being taken advantage of. It's not like it's not like keeping the front door of your house unlocked, right? When the game is launched in a metaphorical sense, right? It's only unlocked when someone launches the game with this specific payload, essentially. That's still bad. It still means that if you have an application on your computer with this vulnerability, a game with this issue, that all they have to do is launch the game with this specific data to take advantage of it. But as long as you don't click on anything sketchy, you're not going to get hacked. You're only going to get hacked or get pwned or whatever if you click on something that takes advantage of the exploit. But if you're running the game and you know that there's no additional command line parameters or application parameters or launch options or whatever you want to call it, all those terms are interchangeable. As long as there's no extra stuff being fed into the application in those ways and you know it, you're not going to be hacked by the game simply running continuously. Maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, again, please someone correct me. But that's what I have heard from all the sources that everyone else is looking at right now. You listening to people talk about these things in YouTube videos and reading these articles and stuff like this, I'm getting the information from the same place. The only thing is it seems like some people are concerned about whether or not running the game itself, like the game continuously running, is a bad thing when it isn't, as long as you know what the command line parameters are, right? And the most common way that this would probably be exploited is, again, if you click on something in the browser which launches your game in a bad way, essentially. And I think most of the time when people play games on Steam, they do it here, right? So I will admit, you know, maybe it'd be good to, if you clicked on something sketchy and you're a little concerned, check your launch options for any game that you know might be affected, and make sure that there's no issues, right? But outside of that, you should be fine. Anyway, it looks like this video is going on for 28 minutes, so I'm going to leave it off at that. That was just a little final ramble that, of course, I can't help myself with. So, yeah, I hope this video is helpful for anyone who's also affected by this, and to kind of like make it look like, oh, yeah, this is all you have to do, you know. Anyway, I'm going to leave it off at that. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully this tutorial was useful and not too rambly and annoying to listen to me, you know, go on and on and on and on and on. But yeah, thank you all. Peace.